This is the 4th episode of 2x4 Projects for Beginners. Now, I've been getting a bunch of feedback from y'all, a bunch of comments, and I just want to say thank you for all of that. It means a lot. So, let's begin. Now, I've had a few of you reach out to me and say, I'd love to build some of your projects, but I don't have a workbench or something sturdy to build on. Well, that's a very good point. So how about we build something simple that'll get you started, and then later on, you can build a workbench. For this first project, we're going to need two 2x4x8s. On your first board, you want to cut 3 at 3 inches, 2 at 24, and 1 at 38. And then on your second board, you want 1 at 3 inches, 2 at 24, and 1 at 44. And I cut these in this fashion to minimize the waste that we'd have left over and be most efficient with our boards. Now, of course, you can cut this in any pattern you want, but if you don't do it this way, chances are you're probably going to need a third board. And if by chance you have any writing on your board, this is nothing you need to worry about, so you don't have to do any sanding on this project other than maybe some splinters. It's now time to grab 2 of your 24-inch boards. We want to put pocket holes on the ends of both of these. And while you have your jig out, grab your 38-inch board and put pocket holes at both ends as well. Now grab one of your 24-inch boards without the pocket holes and one with the pocket holes. You want to set the one without on edge. Take the one with, and you want to center it up on the opposite edge, and then cinch it down. And then repeat that process so that we have 2 of them. Next, we need to focus in on the bottom board here. So we're gonna flip this up, then take 2 of the 3-inch pieces. We wanna attach 1 on each end for some feet. It's also a good idea to pre-drill these holes, or there's a very good chance for cracking. Also, try to get the screws just below the surface of the wood, or they could scratch your floor. And of course, repeat this for both legs. Then going from the top of our base, I want to measure up 8.5 inches, and then I took a speed square and a pencil and just made a nice mark across there so we know exactly where it's at. Then using the 38-inch board, that's the one we have the pocket holes in, we're going to line up the bottom of it with that line we just made. Then of course, you need to add your screws. And of course, we now need to attach it to your second leg. But to hold it in place and keep it in position without things falling over can be a little bit difficult. So let me show you a little tip. Go get yourself a clamp, preferably one that has a flat edge on one side. And what you want to do is clamp it right at the line so that everything is nice and straight across. You may have to adjust it a few times to get it just right. But once you get it, I gotta move this down. There we go. Now it's lined up, and you can take your board. You can now rest it on top of that clamp, get everything in alignment, and your hands are now free to screw it in. And it's now time to attach our last board, the 44-inch, on top. But that could be a little bit difficult to screw in that fashion, so I'm actually going to flip this thing upside down and do it that way. Once we have everything in place, you can measure this to be exact, or you can just eyeball it, which is what I'm going to do. And with that complete, we can now flip it over. Now look at here. You'll notice there's a little bit of rock in this. That's because if your boards are not perfectly straight, if they're warped at all or twisted at all, it's going to contribute to your sawhorse. But keep in mind that most floors are not level anyway, so this can happen. Just adjust as needed and it should work out. Now some of you might be thinking, hey, wait a minute. You can't just use one sawhorse, you need 2. And you're correct. This is an older one I built, and this is the one that I mirrored in it. Now, this is not your standard sawhorse. I've actually built some additional features into this, and let me show you those. Just like your standard sawhorses, you can take a piece of plywood, put it across the top, and that gives you a nice sturdy work area to work on. But most sawhorses don't have a place to clamp, and I've built this extra little lip into this, so when you need to hold something down, you can clamp it on there and hold it nice and tight. Looking down below on our additional supports that we have down here, we can take another piece of plywood, stick it down there, and now we have a great additional work surface, whether it's to let something dry or just to put something down there to get it out of the way. And if we look down even further, we have the legs down here. So you can take an additional board, or whatever you'd like, and have some additional storage or even some more drying area. Now, if by chance you don't like this particular design, that's okay. I have a previous video where I made several different kind of sawhorses, and I'll put a link to that in the description. I'm sure you'll like one of those. Moving on to project number 2, we're going to need 2 boards. From each of these boards, you need to cut 2 at 17.5 inches, 2 at 17, and 2 at 13. And if you have any markings on your board that you want to remove, this will be the time to do that. And now it's time to separate all of the boards out to size. I got 17.5, 17, and 13. These 17.5, the longest ones, we want to push to the side. And the other 8, we're going to put pocket holes on the ends of all of these. But right before we start to drill, look at all your boards. Find the sides that are the ugliest, because we're going to put the holes on those sides, so later they'll be hidden. Now separate the boards out with 2 on each side, so you can have a group of 4, but they're matching pairs over here and matching pairs over here. Next, we're going to line everything up with the 17 and the 13-inch boards in this fashion, so that the 13s will be on the inside, but not exactly flush on the ends. This is just temporary to get it set up. Then get one of the legs, or one of the 17.5-inch long boards, and we're going to put it in one of the corners here. Then we're going to move everything closer together, because we want to make sure that everything is flush on all the sides. And once it is, we can start installing the screws. Then get another one of the 17.5-inch legs. We want to put it in the opposite corner of what we just installed. That way, in case these are just a little bit off, we can compensate for that. When you get to the last corner, there's a good chance that it might be a little bit off. So you're going to have to get a clamp to kind of pull it all together so you can install it. And once this side is complete, we're just going to flip the whole thing upside down and repeat the process on the other side. And once we have our cube together, it's a good idea just to take a preliminary measurement. It should be about 20 inches, and the top is, and the bottom, it's actually about a 1/16 off. Well, this is going to be going in a garage or workshop, so a 1/16 on a bottom shelf, that's not even going to be noticeable. So don't worry about it if it's just slightly off. And if you haven't guessed already, this is going to be a little utility cart for some storage or maybe doing some work on top of. Now at this point we need a shelf on the top and a shelf on the bottom, and I went ahead and cut out the bottom shelf. This was just some scrap plywood I had laying around. It's almost 3/4 of an inch thick, but a little bit thinner. You don't have to have this heavy duty. You can get away with 1/2 inch, maybe even 1/4 inch if you don't plan on putting anything really heavy on your shelving. I also notched out for each of the legs, that way it fits in there nicely. I did this with a jigsaw, but if you don't have a jigsaw, a handsaw should work for you as well. And now for the moment of truth, let's see if it'll actually fit in there. Whew, I was nervous for a second, but it fits in there nicely and should work well. For the top, I'm going to use the same plywood, but again, you really only need 1/4 to 1/2 inch for this. Now, to secure this in place, I'm going to have 4 screws in the top and 2 in the bottom because it's already locked in with the legs. Now the cart is almost finished, but I want it to be able to roll around real easy, so we need some casters. So I bought some casters, and man, they have gone up in price. So I possibly have another suggestion for you. If you can find one of these furniture dollies, sometimes you can get them inexpensively. And they have 4 usually heavy duty casters on the bottom, and these could work great for your project. It just depends on what you want to do. Whatever caster you decide to use, I would suggest using some washers underneath your screws just for some added strength. And the cart is done. And one additional feature about building it this heavy duty is if you need to, you can sit on it to take a rest. It can handle you and then some. Another option for this is you could always put a door in the front and some walls on the sides and create like an enclosed cabinet, or you could create a little drawer that slides in and out right under it. With our first 2 projects a little bit more in depth, let's make this last one a little bit easier, and you're only going to need 1 board. But if you happen to be somewhat like me and you keep most of your scrap wood, then there's a good chance you can make most of this with that. You're going to need 1 board at 32 inches, 3 boards at 8 inches, 2 at 5.5, 3 at 4 inches, 1 at 3 inches, and 2 of them that look a little weird. These last 2, if you measure from peak to peak here, is about 4.25 to 4.5 inches. It doesn't have to be exact, but you want it close. Also, the lines or cuts here on the ends are both 45 degrees and they are parallel with each other. And you want 2 of these. Next, let's make some reference marks on our main board here. So take a measuring tape. We want to measure out 8, 16, and 24 inches, and that'll give us 4 even segments. Then grab one of your 8-inch boards and a 4-inch board, and we want to center the 4-inch board on the 8-inch board like so. And then take a clamp, and we want to clamp it in place so it doesn't move around. I'm next going to add 2 screws through the 8-inch board into the 4-inch to hold everything together. It's also a good idea from this point on to pre-drill all our holes so we don't have any cracking. Now we're going to grab 2 of the 4s and 1 of the 8s, and we're going to screw them together just like that. Then we're going to take our 2 weird looking pieces and we're going to put them together so they look like a V. Look at that, almost like a house. Let's get to the real project. Then we want to take the V and the last 8-inch board and we want to connect them just like that. And now with all our pieces ready, it's time for final assembly. At the bottom of a board, we're going to grab one of the 5.5-inch boards and we're going to attach it just like so. And then the other 5.5, if by chance you have any rough marks, make sure they face towards the bottom. And we're going to line it up with that reference mark we did earlier. Then we're going to take that 3-inch and we're going to attach it right in the center. Then we're going to attach our odd looking piece here with the top of the V touching right there on the reference mark. Then we're going to take our U looking piece and we're going to flip it over and attach it in between the 2 reference marks we have there. And the last segment I attached right here at the top, trying to make sure it was flush with this board as well. And there we go, it's a simple little project that looks really cool when you're done. This would be great for family or friends or maybe even your own home. And there you have it, 3 more great projects that you could make with 2x4s. Now if you haven't seen the other videos in this series, I'll put a link to those in the description. Make sure you check those out. Otherwise, get out in your shop and have fun building.